の高み再会の中の美しい愛
To shatter the reality of a boy placated by a system out of control, it is necessary to trip him with a cane. This was the last day Jason Butane would be blind to the ground beneath his feet. A chip placed in his hand ensures he's always a part of society. He has a top 10 list, a location report, and health metrics. He is safe until the bus to high school arrives. He has been accepted to Instituto de Lumo Kai Ombro, a school he probably doesn't even have to look up. He only needs to carry his backpack and get on the bus as instructed by an embossed cardstock invitation delivered to him by a common drone. The morning was clear and sunny as Jason locked the door behind him and walked to the bus stop. When he arrived, he noticed Lisa getting off a public bus. She saw him and, noticing him noticing her, made her way over. "Hey, Jason, aren't you the strawberry milkshake guy?" she asked with a teasing smile. Jason felt his cheeks heat up. "Yeah, that's me. I just really like strawberry milkshakes." Lisa laughed. "I get it. So, what are you doing here? Are you going to school?" "Yeah, actually. I got invited to this new school, Instituto de Lumo Kai Ombro. Ever heard of it?" Jason asked, trying to sound casual. Lisa shook her head. "Nope, never heard of it. Sounds mysterious, though." She paused. "Why do you come to see me every day? Is it really just for the milkshakes?" Jason felt a wave of nervousness wash over him. Yeah, I mean the milkshakes are really good." Lisa smiled, sensing his awkwardness. She had wondered if Jason liked her, but hearing him talk about milkshakes was oddly charming. She decided to keep her thoughts to herself. "Well, good luck with your new school. It sounds exciting." "Thanks, Lisa. I hope it is. What about you? How's work going?" "It's the usual, you know. Busy, but I like it. Gives me a chance to talk to interesting people like you," Lisa said, giving him a playful nudge. That made Jason smile. "Yeah, I guess. It's nice to have someone to chat with." They talked until an approaching bus caught their attention. The old orange and white bus sputtered down the road, making a racket with its noisy engine. It definitely wasn't electric, and it looked like it had seen better days. Jason had no anxiety. How could he in such a safe world? He turned back to Lisa, wishing they had more time. "I guess that's my ride." Lisa nodded, giving him an encouraging smile. "Take care, Jason. And remember, just be yourself." The bus came to a stop, and the mechanical door creaked open. Lisa waved goodbye as she headed to work, leaving Jason to board the old bus. He took a deep breath and stepped aboard. The floor near the entrance was wet and sandy, a stark contrast to the clean, pristine city he was used to. The driver took Jason's invitation and fed it into a clockwork machine. He chose an empty seat near the middle, hoping not to stand out on his first day. The bus was eerily quiet, and there were no other children on board yet. Jason glanced toward the driver, but the man never looked directly at him. His face was hard to make out, as if in a dream. It wasn't swirling, but it was never quite recognizable. Jason settled into his seat, noticing the rattling windows and the loud bumps as the bus hit potholes. Each jarring bump made him grip the seat a little tighter. When it finally made a stop, a group of older students got on. They ignored Jason and headed straight to the back of the bus. Behind them was a boy named Sanjo. He looked around nervously, then picked the seat next to Jason. Sanjo had dark hair and glasses. He clutched a small backpack tightly. "Hey," Jason said, offering a friendly smile. "No seatbelts on this thing, huh?" Sanjo shook his head. "Nope, and the windows aren't any safety glass I know of either. It's kinda weird." They chatted, discovering they had rival video game consoles at home. As the bus left Sanjo's hometown, he stared out the window, his expression growing wistful. "I'm gonna miss my mom," he said quietly. Sanjo stared out the window, his eyes distant. I had a picnic with my mom at the park on the last day of summer, he said softly. It was really nice, just the two of us. She made all my favorite foods, sandwiches, fruit salad, and homemade cookies. We sat under this huge oak tree and watched the ducks on the pond. It was really special. Jason thought it sounded a little too wholesome, but kept that to himself. It was clear that Sanjo was a mama's boy, but Jason found it endearing in a way. They continued talking as the bus rumbled along. Soon it was full of noisy students. Jason and Sanjo found themselves sitting closer together, with Jason by the window. As the day wore on, they grew hungry. The bus eventually stopped at a small cafe in the middle of nowhere. The bus driver opened the door, his face still hard to make out. With a calming voice, he instructed the children, "You have 20 minutes to get something to eat and stretch your legs." He looked out the opposite window, never directly at them. "Please use the restroom and be responsible," he added, still avoiding eye contact. Jason and Sanjo disembarked, stepping into the dry air. The cafe had an old, worn look with a big dull green sign that was only half lit up. The sound of a single crow echoed overhead, adding to the eerie atmosphere. "Man, I'm starving," Sanjo complained, clutching his stomach. "I hope they have something good to eat in there." "Yeah, me too," Jason replied, glancing around. The place had a strange, out-of-time feel, like it had been forgotten by the modern world. He couldn't help but notice every little detail, the old-fashioned gas pumps, the peeling paint, and the dusty windows. The place seemed like a relic from another era. They stood outside for a moment, taking in the surroundings before heading inside the old cafe. The inside was old leather stools and a counter had seen better days. At home, Jason preferred to eat in a self-driving car, but this had an inviting stasis. They noticed a kid wearing an apron mopping the floors. He couldn't have been much older than Sanjo and Jason. The students lined up to order, but a crudely drawn cardboard sign indicated a separate line for first years. Jason and Sanjo found themselves at the end of that line. As they reached the front, Jason and Sanjo noticed the first years were all getting the same meal, eggs and toast with a juice box. When it was their turn, they asked the server, a kind and patient woman, why they couldn't order anything else. "Excuse me, why do the first years all get the same meal?" Jason asked. The woman smiled kindly. "Because most of you don't have physical money yet," she explained. "It's just easier this way. But don't worry, the eggs and toast are quite good." Jason sighed and took their trays. As they sat down, he glanced longingly at the milkshake menu. "I really wanted a milkshake in a glass, not a disposable cup," he muttered. Sanjo nodded in agreement. "Yeah, it would have been nice." As they ate, Jason noticed the server walking by, busy but graceful. "Hey, can we get sodas instead of juice boxes?" he called out to her. She turned and shook her head politely. "I'm sorry, but first years stick with a set menu. Enjoy your meal." She smiled before continuing her tasks. "She's pretty when she's busy," Jason remarked, half to himself. Sanjo glanced over, but quickly looked away, not as interested. "Yeah, I guess," he said with a shrug. Jason sprinkled pepper on his toast, trying to make the meal feel a bit more grown-up. "Well, I guess this is okay. I like breakfast for dinner." Sanjo looked around and noticed the kid mopping the floor. "That guy must know where this place is," he said. "I have no internet access. It's kind of spooky." They called the mop kid over and introduced themselves. "Hi, I'm Jason, and this is Sanjo. What's your name?" "Frank," the kid replied, not stopping his mopping. "Do you know where this place is?" Jason asked, his curiosity piqued. Frank shrugged. "It's a place between places, so it doesn't really matter where it is." Sanjo looked confused. "What do you mean, between places?" Frank continued mopping. "It's just that. Between places. First years shouldn't ask so many questions." Jason decided to try a different approach. "Who do you work for, Frank?" Frank glanced up briefly, his expression unreadable. "I work for the cafe." Jason frowned. "Yeah, but who owns the cafe?" Frank's answers were frustratingly vague. "It's owned by the people who need it." Sanjo, feeling a bit timid, hesitated to ask more questions, but he persisted. Is there someone we could talk to for more information? Frank shook his head. Nope. You got all you need. Enjoy your meal. He stood there awkwardly, waiting for them to dismiss him. Okay, thanks, Jason finally said, and Frank returned to his mopping without another word. They finished their meal, chatting a bit more. Once their time was up, they headed back to the bus. Jason felt regret as he glanced at the milkshake menu one last time. He was determined to get one the next chance he got. They boarded the bus and found their seats. It was dark outside, so Jason and Sanjo chatted quietly. I thought we were going to some prestigious school, Jason said, frowning. So far, it feels weird and maybe even a bit dangerous or fake. Yeah, Sanjo agreed, glancing around. There are students here who aren't first years. That's kind of reassuring, I guess. They don't seem confused like us, so it's probably safe. They were too shy to bother any of the older students. It wasn't long before Sanjo became homesick. I'm gonna miss my mom, he said softly. She uses really good fabric softener, so my blankets are always soft and warm. Jason smiled. Sanjo, you're going to higher education. Talking about your mom doesn't make you sound more mature. Sanjo nodded, determined. I know. I'm just really close to her. I will probably still mention home a lot. As they finished their conversation, strange lights appeared in front of the bus, parallel on either side like landing lights. They seemed to float, moving slightly slower than the bus. Everyone watched in awe as the campus lights came into view. It looked like a little town with bright white lights illuminating clean grass yards that were not perfectly flat but well maintained. Farsight Veil will return in a moment. We now return to Farsight Veil. Please like and subscribe. The main building the bus pulled up to was massive, with a large digital clock tower displaying weather and humidity updates, along with a message welcoming students. Look at that, Jason whispered, eyes wide with wonder. It's so futuristic. Yeah, Sanjo breathed. A teacher stood waving and calling for first years. She clapped her hands to get their attention while the older students proceeded inside. It was Dr. Larkspur, wearing a lab coat and showing signs of stress. Her AI, Kriya, a green floating ball of light, helped organize the new arrivals. First years, gather around. Dr. Larkspur's voice boomed, commanding their attention. I am Dr. Larkspur, and this is Kriya. She gestured to the green glowing orb. Follow Kriya and stay in line. Many students followed Kriya closely, fascinated by the floating, glowing sphere. Kriya did not speak, but instead beeped and gently nudged students, guiding them into a line. The students were both fearful and delighted by this unique presence. Kriya felt like a soft soccer ball when she pushed them. What is a Kriya? Jason whispered. No idea, Sanjo replied, eyes wide. But it's cool. Dr. Larkspur ignored further questions from the students, focusing on getting them lined up single file. Kriya beeped and gently nudged the students who was stepping out of line, bringing them back into formation. In single file, the first years followed Dr. Larkspur and Kriya into the school. As they walked, older students passed by, trying to reclaim old lockers. The floors were polished white and green marble. Jason and Sanjo were in shock as they saw numerous floating balls of light in different colors. Some students were talking to them, and one girl even hugged a glowing orb tightly with affection. Before the first years could interact with any, Kriya beeped and gently nudged them, keeping the line moving. As they continued down the corridor, a curious light ball floated towards the line of first years. Kriya quickly intervened, beeping aggressively and pushing the light ball away, ensuring the students stayed in line. Keep moving, students, Dr. Larkspur instructed, pointing out different rooms along the way. Jason glanced over his shoulder at Sanjo. I wonder what it's like to talk to one of those things. Sanjo nodded. Yeah. Where do you think they came from? I don't know, but there are so many of them, Jason observed. And the students seemed to talk to them a lot. As they rounded a corner, they came to a set of large gym doors. Dr. Larkspur stopped and turned to the group, a playful smile on her face. "Welcome to Gym 13, she said ominously. "This is where your physical education will take place. Don't let the numbers scare you." Jason grinned. "She's just trying to scare us. But I bet it's going to be fun." Dr. Larkspur clapped her hands sharply. "All right, everyone, you will now be tested," she said in a mock-scary tone, relishing the chance to spook the new students a little. She entered, ensuring the students followed. Dr. Larkspur and Kriya led the first years into the gym. In the center of the gym stood a small fake building, surrounded by wooden fences and a maze of corridors. There were about 150 first years present, along with a few other teachers. Jason and Sanjo didn't recognize anyone in the crowd. They glanced up and noticed a large number of light balls watching from the stands, their colors shifting subtly. The principal's voice boomed over the intercom, introducing himself. "Welcome, first years. I am Mr. Norbert. This year's testing will be a lot of fun. You'll be split into 2 teams and play laser tag. Friendly fire is on, so be careful or don't," he said with a hint of mischief. "Remember to avoid injury if possible and watch out for any tripping hazards." Teachers led the eager students to the wall where laser tag rifles were mounted. Jason and Sanjo took rifles next to each other, hoping to end up on the same team. "These look pretty cool," Jason said, examining his rifle. He had never used a gun before and was fascinated by the design. Sanjo, on the other hand, inspected the sights and practiced aiming. "Yeah, they do. The sights are pretty accurate," he said, adjusting his grip expertly. Jason didn't notice Sanjo's proficiency with the rifle. "These feel so cool, even though they're kinda heavy," he said, still admiring the weapon. "Make sure to leave your backpacks at the door and check that you're wearing running shoes," a teacher reminded them. Jason turned to Sanjo as they waited for further instructions. "This doesn't seem like an ethical test. Having this many kids running around with rifles, even if they are fake, feels dangerous." Sanjo nodded, looking worried. "Yeah, I agree. It feels risky." The principal's voice came through again. "Teams will be assigned based on the color that lights up on your rifle," he said. Jason and Sanjo watched anxiously as their rifles lit up. To their dismay, they were assigned to different teams. They laughed, trying to make light of the situation. "With so many students, we probably won't even see each other," Jason joked. "But if we do, I'll definitely win." Sanjo grinned. "We'll see about that." The principal, still unseen, instructed the teams to their respective sides. Sanjo holstered his rifle in a professional manner and sprinted expertly around a corner. The principal's voice began a countdown, adding to the anticipation. As the countdown ended, Jason looked at the other students nervously. No one had a plan, and everyone was silently unsure. A tall student stepped forward and introduced himself confidently. "I'm Roger, and I know what we need to do to win this. Stick with me and we'll dominate," Roger said, trying to be impressive. His voice was the only one that promised victory, and many of the students on the red team with Jason followed him. One girl stamped her foot and protested loudly. "This test is foolish and a total breach of trust," she exclaimed, her voice trembling with emotion. "We were promised a safe environment, and this is anything but." Dr. Larkspur, without a word, shot the girl with a bolt of red light. She flinched, but the only thing that happened was her gun turned off. Seeing this, the students rushed onto the battlefield, breaking up into groups. The majority followed Roger, the tall boy. Jason, with a group of strangers, walked into enemy fire. A few students were hit as both groups clumsily fired at each other and scrambled for cover. Jason hid behind a wall, panting heavily. He'd never done activity like this before and was already feeling a little out of breath. His frantic heartbeat was draining him. He heard a girl whimper and a thud around the corner. Peeking, he saw a girl holding her ankle, clearly in pain and on the blue team. He thought about shooting her since she didn't see him, but he felt bad for her. She couldn't continue like this. Before he could really consider the competition, one of Jason's teammates saw her and shot her. "She almost had you. I saved you there," the boy said, then continued to shoot around a corner, clearly having a blast. Jason, feeling terrible, started going the opposite path to separate himself from the situation. As he did, he found himself alone. Spotting another student from the blue team, he aimed with intent and shot. The kid's rifle shut down, and he looked disappointed. Feeling a bit more confident, Jason entered the fake house, hoping his team members were there. Entering a fake room, he came up behind Sanjo, who turned around. They hesitated for a moment. Jason was shot by Sanjo. Jason's rifle deactivated, and he stood there feeling betrayed. In that moment, the last few shots were fired, and a klaxon sounded. All remaining students were disappointed as the game ended, and some moans could be heard from injured students. The principal's voice boomed over the intercom. "Blue team wins. You all did well." Jason didn't know what to say, but got his stuff with Sanjo. As they walked, Jason reflected on what had happened. His mind was racing. He felt betrayal and confusion. He struggled to understand the fairness of the game.
"秘密はそっとささやいて」「私と一緒に